Hello, YouTube fans. It's Michael Palumbo, and I got another great piece, and I want to talk about the First Amendment of the Constitution. I'll give you a little legal lesson on the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution around this whole Twitter controversy on them allegedly censoring the New York Post. And there were Senate hearings yesterday, and the Twitter CEO, Jack Dorsey, he testified, and I watched the whole thing, and I found it actually very interesting. Before I get into it, please like, subscribe, and share the video. Especially share and subscribe to the channel and share the video. It helps me out a lot, getting more and more traction, more and more popularity to the channel. I want to continue to bring great content and great information. So the First Amendment to the United States Constitution is your right to freedom of speech. And I think pretty much everyone knows that. And the allegation against Twitter is Twitter censored a New York Post article that was critical of Hunter Biden. And so the right, and you don't necessarily have to be conservative to believe this, but the right, conservatives, Republicans were saying, well, you were censoring an article that was unfavorable to the Bidens. So because you're in the bag for the Democrats. That's the allegation, and they actually had yesterday a Senate hearing on this on this issue. So here's the first issue. The first issue is, while we all have the right to freedom of speech, the U.S. Constitution only prohibits the government from abridging our speech, from preventing us from speaking freely. It doesn't prevent private entities. Your employer can limit your speech as in terms of working there. And Twitter can also limit your speech. It's a private company. So, and as Jack Dorsey testified to yesterday, it's part of our terms of agreement for you to use the platform that we can do certain things, that we can I guess delete tweets or hide tweets. So what happened in this situation was, and I got this information from watching the testimony of Jack Dorsey from Ted Cruz was questioning him, and if you didn't rely on that, looking at it and listening to what he testified to, Jack Dorsey, and the questions and answers, there seemed to me to be a false impression, a false narrative in the media for everything that I read, that it was like a true clamped down censorship, and that's not what it was. What Jack Dorsey testified to was that we didn't censor the New York Post and the New York Post article. Twitter has a policy that we don't post, that we police for, and we don't post hacked information. So and I never saw the tweets, so I don't know directly, but this doesn't seem to be in dispute, and that part of what the New York Post did not just tweet their article and say, oh, we got this expose on Hunter Biden, click here to read it, our expose. They also published the hacked documents, the documents that they got through some sort of hacking that wasn't really supposed to be in the public domain. And what Jack Dorsey testified to was that, look, we have a policy that we don't want to encourage people to get material through illicit means. It's going to be useless on our platform. And all we did was right now the New York Post Twitter account has been shut down. And what we did was we told the Post, and they can access it. They can tweet their article and they'll link back to their article, and you could read it on their news, at their newspaper site. And probably they could have it there, link to it there, and you could even see the documents. But what we object to, we're not going to allow our hacked documents on our platform. We told them to take it down. They said no, so then we shut their account down. They can go on it, delete the hacked documents, and tweet all they want about whatever they want to tweet about. But they just can't put documents that were gained illegally or unethically or immorally, unethically or illegally on our platform. And to me, that makes perfect sense. Whether I'm a Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter. I'm like, what? That doesn't seem like censorship to me. Okay. But however, again, they can censor. And while, I may not like the fact that Twitter or other social media platforms censor, I support their right to do it because they're a private entity, a private business, and they have terms of use. And if you don't like it, you don't use it. It's just that simple. If you don't like it, you don't use it. And look, if there are social media entities out there censoring for one side or the other and trying to, not just report but make bias, it's unfair to a political candidate. It's unfair. Okay, I recognize it's unfair. I recognize it really that shouldn't happen. But you know what? I support the U.S. Constitution. I support the extent of the U.S. Constitution. If we're going to start saying that the Constitution applies in places it doesn't apply, the government can have control over a private entity, censoring when there's no right for the government to do that. That's worse than what they're alleged to have being done. Now, Ted Cruz pointed out in his questioning, there were hacked documents put up against Trump, and their Twitter account wasn't shut down. Those weren't taken down right away. And what Dorsey said was, yes, that's true. But through that experience, we changed our policy. We did eventually take down the hacked documents. But then we changed our policy, and now this policy is in place. So, and look, the guy admitted, look, look, it was a work in process. We were a little flat on our feet on that one, but we actually did use what you're talking about as a learning curve for us to better police Twitter. So it wasn't really, it wasn't that we were permitting it for Trump and then we immediately, permitted it when it was against Trump and we immediately censored it when it was against Biden. But we changed our policy, and the guy kept saying, look, they can go on. They just got to delete the hacked material, and they have their account back, and they could tweet about whatever they want to tweet about. We don't care. We're not going to stop them. Then, I saw the article post today that they're being blackmailed. They're not being blackmailed, okay? They're not being blackmailed. And Ted Cruz, he asked his little punchline, question, and it was something like, Mr. Dorsey, and he used the H word, because apparently you can't curse on YouTube. Who the heck elected you to blah, blah, blah? And I wish Dorsey had said, no one elected me. That's why I can do it. If we want, we're not censoring. But if I wanted to censor, we can censor because I'm not elected. You're elected. You have limitations on what you could do as the government against people like us. But I have no limitations. I'm a private entity. We're a private business. We can censor if we want. We choose not to censor. We choose to have policies that we feel, are positive, and we don't want to encourage anyone to illegally or immorally get material and put it on our platform. So we choose to have these policies, and too bad you don't like it, Ted Cruz, but you know what? I haven't been elected. That's why I can do it. I wish he'd said that, but of course, he's a guy running a business. He's not a constitutional scholar, nor am I. Although I'm a lawyer, I know more about the Constitution than most people. But when Cruz said that, I was just praying. He said, "No one elected me. That's why I can do it, you idiot." But he didn't. And look, listen. I mean, I never knew who Jack Dorsey was. I watched this entire 5-minute testimony, and by the way, I don't hate Ted Cruz. I like him. I think he was. I don't think his line of questioning was fair in this case. I don't like his line of questioning in this case. But I have no issue with him. But I got to tell you, I never knew who Jack Dorsey was, and he seems like a good guy to me. I really liked his testimony. I liked his demeanor. I liked he didn't take the bait, and he answered the questions. Answered questions directly, and he was just very respectful. And I think Twitter's policy, is a good one and a fair one. Now, the argument against Twitter, and this is the argument against social media in general, Google, whatever. The question becomes, the way we communicate in today's day and age, the internet and social media is just so important. Cell phones, I mean, You ever meet anyone without a cell phone? If you met someone who said, I don't have a cell phone, you think they were a weirdo, you know? So the question is becoming, and this has been in I've read articles about this, and I kind of could see where it's going, and I'm not against it. Not saying I'm for it, but has the time come to consider Google and Twitter and other social media platforms, not just private businesses, but public utilities? I mean, we cannot survive without the internet. I think the internet it's the internet in general, internet service providers, are they really a public utility? And the way we communicate nowadays, I mean, if someone goes camping for like 4 days in someplace that there's no cells, they're off the grid. It's like they don't exist anymore. The whole cancel culture. You can be canceled online. So, can they be considered a public utility, which is still a private entity, like your power company's a private entity, but they just can't decide to shut your power off because they don't want to service you anymore. They can't do that. They're regulated by the government on what they can and can't do. And if they're a public utility, that will give the government more rights to regulate them. And I honestly, I see the argument. I understand what the people who are saying, wait, Twitter and Google and internet service providers and cell phone providers, they are so pervasive, they're so required in our society today. They're more like the power company or the water company than, let's say, even Amazon. They sell stuff, so I don't think Amazon would ever be considered a public utility, or any other, a restaurant, like a store you might go to. They're not a private business in the true sense anymore. They've morphed into a public utility. So that's could be coming down the road for Twitter and Instagram and all these other social media platforms, that they're just so required in our society that they're no longer really just a private company that cannot be at all regulated by the federal or the state governments. So anyhow, that's my piece for today. But the First Amendment gives you the freedom of speech, but it's only prohibits the government from abridging your speech, not private entities, not employers, not private entities. Private entities have the right to limit your speech. So anyhow, it's Mike Palumbo. Glad to bring you this little tidbit of First Amendment knowledge. And again, thanks for watching, and see you again soon.